What's up everyone, welcome back to the channel. Boozer here, thanks for stopping by. Today's video, we're going to be talking about this champion in the background right now, and it's going to be the upcoming Valentine's Day fusion. We're going to go over all the details, its full kit and all that. We're going to talk about that in this video here. And since it's Valentine's Day, she comes with a partner. We'll go over the partner's kit as well in this video. So first, let's go over this quick blurb here from Plarium. Hey folks, on Monday, February 9th, that's the key day here. Monday, February 9th, we're planning to launch a champion fragment event for a new champion, Noldua the Gleaming. So key takeaway there is that it's a fragment collector champion, and it's going to be happening on Monday. It's from the Dark Elf faction. It's a legendary support champion, and it's going to be force-based affinity. Noldua, together with her partner Solanar the Gleaming, form a new powerhouse duel designed to counter speed teams in the arena. Wow. Noldua is a powerful support champion, bringing a mass revive, strong debuffs, buff removal, and a defining feature, a passive that reduces the effectiveness of enemies' turn meter manipulation from skills. This makes her particularly effective against fast-paced compositions. Solanar is a damage-dealing champion with multiple built-in survivability tools, including damage mitigation, self-revival, ability to turn debuffs into buffs, and the first wielder of the new fatigue debuff. While both champions can shine on their own, Noldua and Solanar are meant to be together, where their kits complement each other and unlock their full potential as a coordinated anti-speed pairing. Those are some big words. They quickly go over the fatigue debuff here. Champions under a fatigue debuff will receive a sleep debuff for 1 turn after using an active skill. Now, I believe the fatigue debuff is it's currently on a relic, and I don't think it's particularly strong because sleep as a crowd control is not particularly strong, but I think it could be, kind of annoying here or there. Could be a nice little sweetener effect for an ability, but we'll have to take a look at Solanar's kit. If a champion with fatigue debuff uses a skill that removes debuffs, the fatigue debuff will be removed and the sleep debuff will not be placed. So basically you can cleanse it off. All right guys, so this is Noldua's kit here. Let's check it out here real quick. So like I said, support, she is going to be force affinity. This seems to be a common trend here. I think it's a pretty good affinity for a support champion. Let's check out her A1, Shade Strike. Attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing Enfeeble for 2 turns. That's pretty significant, a 2-turn Enfeeble. Marius only lands a 1-turn Enfeeble, but he does have an AoE A1. If the target is a boss, places a Weaken for 2 turns instead. This debuff cannot be resisted if Solanar the Gleaming is on the same team. She gets additional 25% debuff chance from books, so it goes up to 75% chance to land the Enfeeble and 75% chance to land the Weaken. It would have been a lot better if it was 100% chance, but a 2-turn Enfeeble is pretty crippling if she can land it 75% of the time, and Weaken can be useful against some single target bosses, so not too bad of an A1 here. Let's check out the A2 here. Umbral Purge, 5-turn cooldown, books down to 3 turns, has 25% debuff chance from 2 books. So when fully booked, 100% chance of removing all buffs from all enemies, so it's an enemy strip. This effect cannot be resisted if Solanar is on the same team, so looks like, no accuracy requirements if Solanar is on the same team. Then has a 75% chance, 100% chance when fully booked of placing decreased defense on all enemies. This debuff cannot be resisted if Solanar is on the same team. If Solanar is on the same team, also places increased attack on all allies for 2 turns. So let's assume Solanar is not on the team. It's an enemy strip with a decreased defense. That would be similar to Odin. Odin has basically the same thing, strip with decreased defense, but he also brings a stun as well. So his ability is just miles better because of the AoE stun, but this ability is still pretty solid. It doesn't bring any crowd control, unfortunately, so her A2 is not effective at just disruption or controlling, but the team strip could be very interesting and generally a pretty decent ability. Let's check out the A3 here. So this is the Revive Moon Bloom's Blessing, 6-turn cooldown, books down to 4 turns. Full team revive, 50% HP, 50% turn meter. That's pretty standard for a 4-turn full team revive. If Solanar is on the same team and is dead, revives them with 100% turn meter instead, which basically pushes them into getting a turn. You know, the other effect is that a shield, 30% of her HP is applied when they are revived. Now, this is a pretty, standard value kind of team revive. 4-turn cooldowns, 50% HP, 50% turn meter, and then some kind of a buff effect. You know, a lot of other revivers give you like a shield, continuous heal, block debuffs, something along those lines, strengthen, etc., etc. But it's always going to be like a 4-turn team revive, similar type of HP, similar type of turn meter. So this is a pretty standard team revive. It's a nice overall 3 abilities here, the A1, the A2, the A3. However, none of them really, they don't really have that wow factor, but they're all solid abilities. Let's check out the passive here, Scholar of Shadows. All turn meter fill effects used by enemies are 30% less effective. So for example, if you have a 30% turn meter boost, you're going to lose 30% of that. So you're only going to lose about 10% of that. So it's only going to be a 20% boost, roughly. If Solanar is on the same team, fills this champion's turn meter by 30% of the enemy's turn meter fill effect. So if you have a 30% boost, you only get 20%, and then Noldua will get 10% of that, roughly speaking. If there are multiple champions on the same team with the same skill, only one will activate. This skill will not activate with duplicate copies. Only counts turn meter fill effects from skill. That's an interesting note. It's a rather simple kind of passive. So you're basically saying that their turn meter effects are not going to be as strong, and then she's going to have the ability to kind of gain turn meter and cut in on the enemy. Honestly, it's a fine passive. Unfortunately, she can really only come in. Let's say she cuts in. She can only really come in and just strip you of your buffs. She can't really do anything else. It would have been nice if it was like a strip and stun instead of the decreased defense, because at least it allows her to kind of disrupt and then control the enemy. But having her cut in and just use a strip and then kind of just do nothing, I don't think is enough, and it doesn't really work too well with her passive. Or another way that this could work is if her passive also gave the rest of your team turn meter, or if she had an ability that gave turn meter as well, perhaps for a single champion, like Lammasu, for example, like similar to Lamassu's ability where she can boost a single champion, but just make it so that if she has the ability to cut in on the enemy, give her a more impactful skill, so that your team can actually jump ahead and do something. Her aura here, 70 accuracy in all battles. That's a very fine aura. It would have been nice if she had a speed aura, mainly because she kind of needs to be fast, right? And if she's going to be impactful against opposing speed teams, she kind of needs to be really, really quick, and she kind of needs a way to disrupt the enemy. With this kit, I'm not really seeing how it's really disruptive. Yes, you can strip off the buffs, but if your team is slow and she cuts in first, you're not going to get a turn because she doesn't give your team any turn meter, right? So I'm not really feeling it. I don't think she's as advertised, I think, because Plarium's saying that she's going to be helpful against speed teams. I don't necessarily think so. But her overall kit is not bad. It's for the Dark Elf faction. They do have a couple revivers in the Dark Elf. Her kit's similar to like Rian the Conjurer, except Rian the Conjurer is a single target revive. But Rian has a strip and weaken. And Noldua here has a strip and decreased defense, but it has a team revive, which is a lot nicer than Rian's. And there's also Kaden, which is also a reviver for the faction as well. And I think Fan Cleric as well. So there are some revivers for the Dark Elves, but a team revive is pretty good. And of course, she's going to be a fusion champion. So I think she's probably definitely worth looking at, especially if you're struggling for that faction. But it would have been nice to see her with some kind of disruption effect. Anyways, let's jump into her partner's kit. It would be interesting to see if they have additional synergies. It doesn't look like she gets crazy benefits from Solanar being on the same team. Basically just clears her of having any kind of accuracy requirement. But let's check out Solanar next. All right, guys, so here is Solanar the Gleaming. Looks like, I guess, a Super Saiyan. I don't know. He's an elf, so he's not a dark elf. He's a high elf. The Void Affinity Legendary Attack Champion. Okay, cool. Let's check out the kit here. Solar Surge A1 attacks all enemies. This attack is always critical if Noldua is on the same team. Has a 60% chance of placing fatigue on all enemies for 1 turn. Debuff chance, so fully booked is plus 20%, so it's 80% chance to land when fully booked. Passive effect has an 80% chance to counterattack with this skill whenever an enemy gets an extra turn or instant turn. Has a 15% chance to counterattack with the skill whenever an enemy has their turn meter increased. Wow, that's really strong. The A1 turn meter is 15%. It's only 15%, but it's pretty strong, right? It's pretty strong. And then you land the fatigue debuff. Obviously, you're gonna need accuracy for that, which kind of sucks on a damage dealer, but that means you're gonna need accuracy on the damage dealer. But that's a really, really strong A1. Unfortunately, not 100% chance to land, but obviously it's balanced around this passive, I guess. Actually, when fully booked, it's going to be 100% chance to counterattack with this skill. Actually, no, buff, debuff chance. No, this is not debuff. So it's just 80% chance. So you don't get the extra 20% from the books applied to the passive effect. So it's just 80% and then 15% and then 80% chance to land the fatigue. Very strong A1 still. Very strong A1. Let's check out the A2 here. Blazing Force. 4-turn cooldown. 3 turns when fully booked. 25% damage from 2 books. Attacks 1 enemy. Single target attack. This attack is always critical if Noldua is on the same team. Will ignore 10% of the target's defense for each buff on this champion. Let's see here. This champion is immune to all debuffs while this skill is not on cooldown. So obviously, if he's locked out and stuff, he doesn't get this benefit. Whenever an enemy attempts to place a debuff on this champion while this skill is not on cooldown, this champion gains a random buff instead. Now we're not sure how crazy those buffs could be, like if they could be unkillable, block damage, or anything like that. Probably not. It's probably just going to be the standard buffs. It's a little bit unfortunate that he doesn't place any buffs on himself with this ability because he has built-in will ignore 10% of the target's defense for each buff. So it would have been nice if he placed a couple buffs on himself, like plus attack or something. But this ability kind of relies on the enemy placing debuffs on him to get buffs. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Not really feeling that. Let's check out the A3 here. Unfettered Radiance. Single target attack again. 4-turn cooldown. No reduction from books. 40% damage from 3 books. That's kind of big. 40% boost. Attacks 1 enemy again before attacking. Steal all buffs. 100% turn meter from the target if they are not under Stone Skin. That's a little bit interesting. So let's say you go first and then the enemy team's all full of Stone Skin. You don't get the steal. You don't get the turn meter steal as well. This effect cannot be resisted. That's great. But you don't get any of that if they're under Stone Skin. This attack is always critical as Noldua is on the same team. Will ignore Stone Skin. So if they have Stone Skin, then you just ignore Stone Skin and then you hit them. But if they don't have Stone Skin, then you're going to steal all their buffs and their turn meter. And it cannot be resisted. That's super strong. That's super strong. Yeah. We'll see how hard it actually hits though. Since it doesn't have any like built-in ignore defense or anything like that. This champion receives 75% less damage on enemy extra turns or instant turns while the skill is not on cooldown. That's a pretty big damage mitigation, 75% less. Extra turns, instant turns. I'm not too sure how many champions have that. Like, yes, Suzanne. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Not too sure how effective that will be. I still think it's probably a smaller percentage of the time that will happen. While this skill is on cooldown, reduce the cooldown by 1 turn whenever an enemy receives an extra turn, instant turn activated on them, or their turn meter increase. That's pretty cool. The turn meter increase part is very strong. And it has the ability to reduce the cooldown by 1 turn. Yeah, that could be really strong. That could be really strong. So this ability could be up very quickly, and then he can be stealing buffs, turn meter, and all that stuff quite frequently, perhaps. Let's see what else is happening. His passive, Scholar of Sun. Whenever an enemy receives healing, has a 100% chance to reduce the amount of healing received to 0. This champion will receive the healing instead. Okay. That's an interesting ability, actually. If Noldua is on the same team, enemies will receive damage equal to the amount of healing instead. Oh, that's pretty interesting. That's interesting. Okay, once per round, if this champion is dead, revives this champion with 100% HP, 100% turn meter when their last living ally is killed. That is interesting. So everybody dies, and then he will get a chance to come back into the game. Only once, though. This then places a magma shield on himself for 2 turns. The value of the magma shield is equal to 300% of this champion's max HP. Wow, that's big. 300% of his max HP. That's a humongous shield. If Noldua is on the same team, this buff is protected. That's a huge shield. That's a huge shield. Oh man, that's a pretty nice kind of insurance policy for this champion. I mean, you get him back if your whole team dies, so you get one last attempt to try to win the match just with him. Aura has got 33% attack in all battles. I like his passive. I like the 300% shield on him. I think that's pretty impactful. I'm not particularly feeling his A2 or A3, to be honest. I think it's a little bit conditional. It's a little bit too conditional. It's, a lot of emphasis on extra turns, instant turns, and then his damage mitigation is conditional to enemies taking extra turns and instant turns. I think it's a little bit too conditional. It's a little bit too specific. He doesn't have built-in ignore defense. In his kit, he doesn't bring any buffs himself. He does rely on enemies placing debuffs on him. He relies on his skills not being on cooldown, which is something that probably doesn't happen that often because there's a lot of cooldown increasing things happening in the game. So there's a lot of conditions that need to happen for this guy to be really, really strong. Now his A1 is really nice though, and you can definitely get a lot of value from this. First of all, the fatigue debuffs. Very, very annoying stuff. And then his passive effects, you're going to get the A1 triggering a lot. Now, the issue with the fatigue debuff is that you require accuracy on this champion, whereas he doesn't really require accuracy on any other part of his kit. Like his steel and his buff steel, turn meter steel doesn't require, is irresistible. So it's a little bit of a drag. Ideally, that this fatigue debuff was a irresistible debuff that didn't require accuracy. So personally speaking, I think this guy's kit is a bit of a mess, to be honest. But of course, with damage dealers, we're going to have to see how well his multipliers stack up when we start testing him. But just on first read, first impression here, I'm not really feeling this guy's kit. It feels a little bit disjointed, similar to how his partner, Noldua, doesn't seem to be super effective against speed teams, especially when she has no crowd control herself. Anyways, guys, you guys let me know in the comments below what you guys think about the duo here, Noldua and Solanar. Pretty cool looking champions, cool partner and stuff, but not too sure how good they're going to be together. I don't think they're going to be super, super great. Noldua here will be the fragment champion starting on Monday. Make sure you guys look out for some test videos on these guys coming up real soon. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what you guys think about both these champions. Thank you guys so much for watching until the end. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.